part of it, but it's important to put it into a context that tree needs space in order to grow well. And it's actually, when it needs space, it's like a big planting bed, because then the tree grows well. And this planting bed, the bigger it is, the better potential it has, or capacity in order to take stormwater. And if you have a big planting bed, the trees grows well and become a big, good-looking tree. And a big tree also have a big, dense canopy that also can reduce the precipitation through the tree crown, through interception. So it's like a system way of thinking in order to get good. So yes, trees can be part of a good solution of stormwater management, but it's very important to plan it or think it through completely. Just planting a tree without thinking out what to need, that's not. But if you do it right, yes, it is.
Yes, and also to think about the seasonal differences. You've got evergreen trees, you get deciduous trees, you have different kinds of branch textures in winter depending on species. You have some species that have a very thin, broad crown canopy branch structure, and then you have other species maybe with a denser structure. And also in the summertime you will have different kinds of foliage.
Well, in urban environments, it's man-made. But still, the way of thinking how to have flood areas, as we have in nature, but also trees planting with big planting beds, or in nature they have huge planting beds. So it's a little bit the same way of thinking, but you have to plan it in a more technology point of view, so to say, in urban environment, because everything is man-made. But a way of how nature taking care of the water, that way we can also imply in urban environments.
And I also think that one of the speakers on this session mentioned something very valuable, that it's not tend to zone in a man-made landscape. We have different areas for
different functions,
and you won't see that in nature. And I also think as humans we are part of nature, and if we can just turn our own minds around that actually the urban landscape is nature, we are part of nature, and use our technology as an innovative medium, then why not? But then I think mimicking nature is about dealing with what happens where you're standing as well, and not to zone it out and functioning it out to different areas. Well, we're from Sweden, and I don't know how it is in the UK in that context. The problem we are facing in Sweden when it comes to sustainable drainage system is that most planners and development companies and architects tend to see sustainable drainage system as something visible, something that will require space or that will require room. Especially now when we're working with a lot of infill development, densification strategies, that will become a conflict because you will have to use the space for car parking, different kinds of storage, service areas for bins, recycling and so on, and also cycling car parks and so forth. So that is the problem that we are facing, that we tend to see sustainable drainage system as ponds, swales, and they are good if you've got the space for it, and you can have all these multifunctional benefits of biodiversity and recreational values. But when we don't have space, we also need to think about working more three-dimensional and four-dimensional, think about the time aspect, because that is what hydrology is all about. We did a study where we looked that actually planning with sustainable drainage system, you need to work at the one-to-one scale, but at the same time zoom out and acknowledge the whole catchment area that you're working in, and starting to compare in space in this catchment area, you will find that actually they will respond very differently depending on subsurface conditions and soils and so forth. So you can have very low density housing area that will actually generate a similar amount of runoff at a high density area, about 5 miles further along in the same catchment area, but they will be on different soil conditions. One will be on clay, one will be on sand. So I think that is the constraints in the planning process at the moment, that we don't recognise that space varies, space are different, and we need to stop planning sustainable drainage systems out from a plan point of view, from a two-dimensional plan view, and see it more as a three-dimensional, four-dimensional process. process, and I think that's when trees and structural soils, working with good designed planting beds, are a good strategy when you don't have much space in courtyard setting, parking places, parks, curb settings.
Periods with a lot of water, and in between these periods very, very dry. You have to design like a good planting bed, but also design plant materials, like a species that in nature there is natural sites which actually go through that kind of fluctuation between wet and really dry, and use these species because these species are have the right strategies to cope with that. And today these species are very rare in public plantation, but they could be more common because they have the right strategy. Because today we're using a traditional plant materials over and over again and different kind of sites, but they might be just good for one particular site. The rest of the site they're less successful. So there is, I think we have to go into detail to talk about species of cultivar, genotypes and trees in order to be successful in this kind of plantation. But yes, it is possible to have plantation like that, definitely. If you have payments on sites where you have many different kind of functions on the same site, and then, for example, you have markets or you have a concert or you should have the park your bicycle and so on, you can't have open plantations. Still, you want to have trees in order to cool down or for beautification. But then it's possible with different kind of technique, like structural soil. You can make a different kind of planting bed underneath the hard surfaces. And then you can have wells where you can have the water into the planting beds and have air wells as well, where you have an exchange by air between the soil and atmosphere above. So it is possible, but you have to know which kind of technology you need to address it. And also, because the growing conditions in these sites are very extreme, you have to choose also the most toughest or the most tolerant tree species for that as well. But yeah, it's possible.